I'd like to wrap things up here with a discussion on adjusting and changing the canvas size of your image. Now, once again, the canvas size is the overall image itself. Think of a traditional artist's canvas. It's the imageable area inside your document, if that makes sense. Now, what we know already is we know that we have an image size dialog box. If I hit Command Option I or Control Alt I can get into the image size dialog box. And you're probably dreading where I'm about to go next because I'm going to start talking about interpolation and pixels and all. No. We've already been over all that. I'm not going to get into that again. But what I wanted to say about the image size dialog box is this guy will increase or decrease the size of the image and the canvas simultaneously. Well, maybe I want to maintain the size of the photograph, but I simply want more space around the photograph. I'm just going to hit Escape here or Cancel to get out of that dialog box. In other words, maybe I want more white space around the image because maybe I'm going to throw a background in there, or maybe I'm going to make a collage of photos or something like this. Okay? So to do that, I'd have to increase the canvas size, the imageable area inside the document. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to head up to the image menu and then down to canvas size. And there's our keyboard shortcut, very similar to the image size keyboard shortcut, Command Option C or Control Alt C. And that's easy to remember because it's the canvas, right? All right. Inside this dialog box, we have the current size at the top, the current width and height in inches, 7.9 by 5.9. And then we have the new size, and there's the current size dropped in there for us. Okay? Now, what we can do here is we can set the anchor point just below that. Now, the dot represents the barn in our example. In other words, the dot here represents what we currently have inside the image, inside the canvas, right? So, for instance, if I were going to increase this guy to 10 inches in width and 10 inches in height, and I leave this little target anchor point set to the default, the center, then that means that I'm going to get extra white space equally all the way around the document. Let me show you what we're going to get here. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. There we go. So now the barn remains inside the center of the image, and we get extra white space all the way around the file. Okay? Now, give me a moment. I'm just going to undo that, Control or Command Z on my keyboard. And then I'm going to head back into the canvas size dialog box. Again, Command Option C or Control Alt C. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same settings, 10 inches and 10 inches. And by the way, I'm just using my Tab key to move forwards. But this time I want the barn to be down in the bottom left corner. In other words, I want all that extra white space to be added to the top and to the right edge of my image, if that makes sense. That's what this anchor is all about. I go ahead and click on OK, and sure enough, now the barn is down in the bottom left corner, and all of the extra canvas space has been added to the top and down the right side of the image. Good enough. Now, once again, I'm going to undo here, Control or Command Z, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see our barn a little bit better. And I'm going to pop back into the canvas size dialog box. Once again, Command Option C or Control Alt C or Image, and then down to canvas size. So we understand what's happening here in terms of the anchor point. That's fine. All it is like a reference point for our image. That's all there is to it. I know that I can come in here and increase the size of my document, the imageable space inside my document. The other thing that we can do is we can change our unit of measurement. So rather than using inches, perhaps if I'm going to drop this onto a web page, I want to work in pixels. And I know that the space that I've created for this content in my web page is perhaps 720 pixels by, 525 pixels, something like that. So you can always change your unit of measurement, right? The other thing that I can do is I can set the canvas extension color. In other words, what color is going to appear inside that extra imageable canvas space that we're creating inside our document. The default is background. That's the background color that's set inside the toolbox. Or, of course, what I can do is I can use the foreground color, or we have some other options in here as well. White, black, gray, or other. I can go and set a custom color. You know what? I never change this. I'm always using the background color, but again, you're more than welcome to go and change this if you like. Now, there's one final thing I want to show you with the canvas size dialog box. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and reset the dialog box all the way back to where we began. And what I can actually do is I can use the canvas size to crop my image. So in other words, the opposite of what I'm showing you here. Rather than increasing the imageable space inside my file, I can actually reduce the imageable space inside the file. So in other words, rather than 7.9 inches, I'm going to change this to 6 inches in width. And rather than 5.9 inches in height, I'm going to reduce this perhaps down to 4 inches. Okay, so notice the arrows change direction, right? And again, I can specify the anchor point, the reference point for this guy. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And I get this warning here. The new canvas size is smaller than the current canvas size. Some clipping will occur. Go ahead and let her rip, and that's what we wind up with. So I can actually use the canvas size dialog box to crop if I am so inclined. However, having just seen the new features inside Photoshop CS6's crop tool, I don't see why I would want to use the canvas size dialog box to crop. However, it is nice to know that it is possible. So there you go, cropping your images and increasing and decreasing the size of your canvas as well.